Hello, everyone. Today is the start of looking at our text for the week from my view, and it is a text called The Himalayas, an informational text called The Himalayas by Charles W. Maynard. Um, Now, the first thing you need to do when you read a text like this is activate your background knowledge. There should be a couple things that come to mind here. Number one, look at this picture. What do you see? Big mountain. Okay. The Himalayas. So if you don't know what the Himalayas are, you got to assume that it has something to do with mountains. Or if you are familiar with the Himalayas, this is activating your background knowledge where you're going, oh, I know the Himalayas. I think Mount Everest is there, the tallest mountain peak in the world. It's really snowy. People go climb those mountains all the time. So I'm going to read through it. You may follow along in your book. It starts on page. Let me look it up here for you. It starts on page 547. So I'm going to go ahead and read through it, and you can follow along. You can just listen. Come prepared to read along or talk about it to whole group. Rooftop of the world. The Himalayan mountain range includes the highest peaks in the world. 14 of the peaks rise more than 26,247 feet, or 8,000 meters, above sea level. The Himalayas, the Himalayas stretch for 1,550 miles, 2,494 kilometers in Central Asia. From China's border, they travel through Burma, Nepal, Tibet, and Bhutan, dip south to India, and spread west, ending in Afghanistan. These mountains form the boundaries between many countries on the continent of Asia. The highest peak in the Himalayas, and thus in the world, is Mount Everest at 29,028 feet, or 8,848 meters. Mount Everest, on the border of Nepal and China, is named for Sir George Everest of Great Britain. Everest, born 1790, died 1866, led the survey of India from 1830 to 1843. The name Himalaya comes from Sanskrit words that means abode or house of snow. Sanskrit is an ancient language that was spoken in India. Because the highest mountains on earth are in the Himalayas, these amazing mountains are also called the rooftop of the world. We have a map here. It shows where they all go through. When continents collide. The Himalayas are young compared to other mountain ranges in the world. The Himalayas began forming from 60 to 65 million years ago. The Appalachian Range in the eastern United States is from 250 to 300 million years old. The surface of Earth, called the crust, is made of huge slabs of rock called plates. These plates have moved slowly over millions of years, sometimes bumping into each other. When the plates bump together, the crust is pushed up and it forms mountains. Scientists call the movement of Earth's crust plate tectonics. About 50 million years ago, the Indian subcontinent began to bump into a landmass called Eurasia, which formed Europe and Asia. That event caused part of the Eurasian landmass to wrinkle, forming the Himalayas. These huge wrinkles are called fold mountains. Mountain fact: even today the tectonic plates are still moving and the Himalayas are still growing. The Himalayas are getting taller by about 1 inch every 5 years. Mountains build up and wear away. The peaks of the Himalayas were part of the ocean floor millions of years ago. Plate tectonic forces push the seafloors into high mountains. Some rocks near the highest peaks of the Himalayas are limestone. Limestone is a kind of rock that is made up of the fossils of sea creatures that lived and died millions of years ago. As the Himalayas rise, other forces are working to wear them down. Over millions of years, gigantic glaciers slowly carve large valleys through the high mountains. As the snow and ice in the peaks melt, they form rivers. India's great Ganges River began in the Himalayas. Pictures here. Over time, this glacier on the Tibet side of Mount Everest has carved out the large valley shown in the photograph. And the Ganges River in India was formed by a glacier high in the Himalayas. The Ganges is sacred for people of the Hindu religion. India and Nepal's Great Plains lie south of the range. The high Tibetan Plateau lies on to the north. In between, the Himalayas have 3 different climate zones. The highest snow-covered peaks lie in the Great Himalayas. The lesser Himalayas have peaks between 6,000 and 15,000 feet, 1,829 to 4,572 meters. tall, and are covered with forests and fertile valleys. The lowest, southernmost peaks are the outer Himalayas. They are called foothills, and they have wide valleys and rivers. A land of contrasts. Wide differences of altitude in the Himalayas create the many climates found here. The valleys of the outer Himalayas, such as those in India and Burma, are subtropical with hot days and plenty of rain. The valleys of the lesser Himalayas have a temperate climate. Average summer day temperatures are from 60 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees to 25 degrees Celsius. Winters are cooler. The Kathmandu Valley of Nepal, in the temperate zone, is populated with many farms and several cities. Most of the year's rainfall of 60 inches, 152 centimeters, comes with monsoon winds from June through September. The eastern Himalayas receive more rain. The Himalayas affect the climate of Central Asia by blocking cold weather from the north and humid weather from the south. The high plateau of Tibet to the north in China is dry and dusty. The winters there are cold and long. Mountain fact: the highest peaks in the Great Himalayas are frozen worlds. Snow and ice stay on the ground year-round. Even the valleys are cold and desert-like, with no trees and few plants. Atop Mount Everest, the oxygen in the air is only 1/3 of that at sea level. It is difficult for plants, animals, and humans to live there. Varied vegetation. The altitudes and climates in the Himalayas support many types of plant life. Rainfall, temperatures, and oxygen all affect the species of trees and plants that live in the mountains and in the valleys. The outer Himalayas, once covered with a rich tropical forest, have been harvested. The land is now either farmed or used to graze goats and other livestock. Pine, oak, and poplar trees grow in the lesser Himalayas. People have cut down many of these trees, which has caused erosion. Tree roots are necessary for keeping soil in place on steep mountainsides. They keep the soil from washing away in rain or blowing away in high winds. Even though many of the steep slopes no longer have trees, beautiful wildflowers color the mountainsides. Orchids, lilies, anemones, poppies, and rhododendron flowers flourish among the mountains and valleys of the lesser Himalayas. The tree line in the Great Himalayas is about 16,000 feet, 4,877 meters. Trees will not grow above this level because of the high altitude and the cold. Amazing animals. Leopards, tigers, deer, and Indian rhinoceroses were once plentiful in the forests of the outer Himalayas. When people cut down the trees for lumber, the forest changed, and so did the types and number of animals that lived in them. Black bears, leopards, and other cats, and the muntjac, a deer known for making a barking sound, now live in the few existing forests. The Great Himalayas, a land of few people, are home to wolves, snow leopards, small bushy-tailed marmots, and musk deer. And a kind of tiny black spider lives as high as 22,500 feet, 6,858 meters. The yak is a Tibetan ox that lives on high plateaus and in the mountains. It likes the cold, dry climate. People raise yaks to carry heavy loads and to pull carts. Yaks are a source of milk and meat. Yak hair is woven to make rope and cloth, and yak skin is used for leather. And you can see here a yak, shown here with a Tibetan family, is a common sight in the Himalayas. Mountain fact: the wild yak is a huge animal with long, brown-black hair forming a thick coat. Male yaks can be 6.5 feet tall at the shoulders. They can weigh more than 2,000 pounds. Many mountain cultures. About 40 million people live in the Himalayas. The Himalayas pass through the Indian states. The Himalayas also lie in the kingdoms of Nepal and Bhutan, as well as Tibet. Many of the people who live in the southern countries of the outer Himalayas and lesser Himalayas are of Indian origin and practice the Hindu religion. North of India, most Tibetan people are Buddhists. Nepal has 35 separate ethnic groups. Most people of the Himalayas are farmers who grow fruits and grains and who herd livestock. The Sherpa people live in Nepal's Great Himalayas. The Sherpas are tribespeople who came from Tibet and settled in the steep-sided valleys of the Himalayas. Sherpas are known as the best guides for climbers of these mountains. On top of the world. The Himalayas were some of the last mountains on Earth to be explored. Ancient spice and silk trade routes between China and India wound through the high mountain passes between India and Tibet. A Spanish priest drew one of the first maps of the area in 1590. In 1852, British surveyors claimed that Peak 15 was the highest peak in the world. It was later named Mount Everest. After several attempts, George Mallory and Andrew Irvine set out to climb Mount Everest on June 8, 1924. They never returned. On May 29th, 1953, Tenzing Norgay, a Sherpa, and Edmund Hillary of New Zealand became the first to reach Everest Peak. Since then, many climbers have tried to scale this mountain have died from the freezing temperatures and the low oxygen. However, hundreds have reached Everest Peak, the top of the high Himalayas. Picture here, Mallory and Irvine are photographed at the beginning of their attempt to climb Everest. A woman climbs a frozen waterfall in the Khumbu Range of the Himalayas. Mountain fact. In 1999, an expedition searched for clues to the 1924 disappearance of George Mallory and Andrew Irvine. The team found George Mallory's body at more than 25,000 feet, 7,620 meters. After removing a few articles from his pockets, the team buried Mallory on the north face of Mount Everest. Mapping and protecting the Himalayas. One early challenge to exploring the Himalayas was mapping its many high, snow-covered peaks. Today, aircraft and satellites make exact maps possible. Geologists, geographers, and other scientists are still working to understand the rooftop of the world better. Some areas of the Himalayas are being protected by several governments so that endangered plants and animals will be saved. The Sagarmatha National Peak of Nepal is one example of this effort. The entire park is located above 9,700 feet, 2,957 meters. The government of Nepal set aside this special place to protect animals, plants, and mountain scenery. The Sherpa people are allowed to live in the national park. Although only a few people will ever climb the mountains, people come from all over the world to look with wonder at these mysterious high peaks and their steep valleys, large glaciers, and swift rivers. The Himalayas remain among Earth's most wonderful places. The abominable snowman. People who follow the Hindu and Buddhist religions in the Himalayas consider these mountains to be sacred. The Ganges, a sacred river to the Hindu people, begins from the snows of the Himalayas. The mountains were the abode of the gods to people who believed that the most powerful gods lived on the snowy peaks. The Sherpas and Tibetans tell legends or tales about the Yeti, who is also known as the abominable snowman. It is said that the name Yeti comes from the Sherpa word Ya, meaning rock, and Te, meaning animal. The Yeti is believed to be a large, hairy creature that is bigger and stronger than a human. There are no photographs or other proof to show that the Yeti lives in the Himalayas. However, stories are told of Yeti that attack and kill yaks in the high meadows. The religious beliefs in the stories about the Yeti show that many people consider the Himalayas to be special mountains with many mysteries yet to be solved.